Welcome, and congratulations on choosing to change your life by strengthening your leadership skills. I'm Brent Peckover, and I'll be your guide on these leadership explorations. We're very excited to have you join our community of leaders. This is the introductory exploration, which will help you understand how to get the most out of what is to come. But first, a short comment about format. In our video-enabled world, we see many talking heads, much like what I'm doing now. Our brain has been refined over millions of years to help protect us from predators. This has two important implications when it comes to learning from video. First, visual stimuli account for the lion's share of our sensory input. Second, our brain is effectively a pattern-matching machine, so anything that looks like a face tends to grab and hold our attention. A National Geographic article discussing the topic recently stated that visual input swamps auditory input by a ratio of 15:1. So while a talking head may be great at grabbing your attention, I've found little research that supports it promotes learning and understanding. I saw the awesome power of how a talking head can grab and hold attention in a webinar I attended recently. There were 30 people in the conference room watching the individual speak, who was on a screen much like I am now, with a podium in front of them. There were no slides in the background. They spent 60 minutes staring at the screen. The amazing thing is that there was a technical glitch and the audio was 90 seconds ahead of the video. So that means that any actions they were seeing were related to what the speaker was saying a minute and a half earlier. My goal is to help you explore different topics and leadership concepts, including how they can benefit you and ways you can put them into action in your day-to-day life. To that end, we will not have a talking head. We will have a black frame, much like this. The screen will serve as a canvas, which we will use to capture key points on to improve retention, or to draw images on to illustrate ideas and concepts. I like to begin by telling a story about Fred and Joel, each of which set out to become a better leader. Fred started by looking for the latest leadership books at the local bookstore, which he quickly bought 2 of and started reading. The first was an easy read, which he finished over the weekend. He enjoyed the book and recounted 2 or 3 of the stories to his coworkers. While there were a few interesting ideas, most of the information he had already heard. With a feeling of accomplishment and self-confidence that he knew much of the information, he started reading the second book. The second book read more like a university textbook. The author had an academic approach to exploring the subject matter. Fred didn't enjoy it as much, and found he was constantly distracted by other pressing activities. As such, he never got past the 3rd chapter. Still wanting to become a better leader, Fred decided to attend a 5-day leadership workshop. He registered for the session and worked hard to clear his schedule. On the train ride home after the workshop, Fred reflected how much he enjoyed the workshop. He met some interesting people, the speaker was very entertaining on the subject matter, and provided some interesting new perspectives. More importantly, Fred had written a plan of 3 things he would do differently starting Monday. Monday came, and Fred found himself walking into a crisis with one of his biggest projects going off the rails. Feeling refreshed and engaged, he rolled up his sleeves and jumped in with the energy and bravado to win a small war. It took 3 days to sort out, and by the end of the week, everything was back on track within this group. However, it took a toll on Fred, and his list of 3 things to change wasn't anywhere to be seen. Joel's approach to leadership refinement was a little different. He registered for the same Go Succeed leadership exploration you have. After looking at his schedule, he determined the best time during the week for him to set aside 30 minutes to invest in his future, his family's future, and his team's future was Tuesday morning at 8:30 a.m. This would be after dropping the kids at school, shortly after getting to the office, but before opening his email and attending the 10 a.m. team meeting. So he scheduled his weekly session reminder in his calendar for Tuesday at 8:15. Each Tuesday at 8:30, he would sit down with his coffee and pull out his notebook. He would start by spending 5 minutes looking at what he had planned to do after last week's exploration. Reflecting on how well it had worked, he jotted down a couple of notes about what he had learned by trying to practice what had been discussed. He also considered what he might do differently. Now he was ready to take the next step in his leadership development. He closed his eyes, reached his arms out and back, thereby stretching out his back. Sitting up tall, he took 5 slow, deep breaths. Now this may sound strange, but this was part of his routine to get his mind focused on spending the next 15 minutes learning. he started this week's Vexploration. During the Vexploration, he jotted down several ideas. Some of them were points covered by the speaker, others were ones he thought of as a result of the subject being discussed. When the Vexploration finished, Joel spent 5 minutes reviewing his notes and writing down 3 changes he was going to try. One was a process change in the team, one related to a point he could coach a subordinate on, and the third related to a change in his behavior as a leader. Opening his calendar, he immediately scheduled a meeting with 2 of the project managers to address the process change. He then picked up the phone and called Monica. Joel knew the best way to execute change in himself was to engage others to hold him accountable. Even though he knew this when he signed up for the Go Succeed Leadership Vexplorations, it took him a couple of weeks before he faced up to the fact and got over his pride. When he started, he was convinced he could do it on his own. However, when he spent 5 minutes before the weekly Vexplorations reflecting on his progress after weeks 1 and 2, he realized that while he made some changes, he sometimes found himself slipping back into his old, less than ideal habits. It was at that point which he decided if he wanted to be the great leader he knew he could be, he needed help from a staff member he could trust. So Joel reached out to Monica and explained the situation and asked if she would be willing to assist. What exactly does Monica do for Joel? Well, she listens to Joel as he talks through the changes he wants to make. Through the simplest act of trying to vocalize the idea, Joel sometimes realizes his original concept could be further improved. The other thing Monica does is help keep Joel on track. In most cases, her being present is enough of a reminder for Joel to change his behavior. However, in the rare case, when the old habits rear their ugly head, Joel and Monica have a hand signal that reminds Joel to check his approach. Monica answers the phone.
Hey Joel, Vexploring again? What's on tap for this week?
Joel explains he wants to make some subtle changes to the culture, with the hopes of increasing engagement in the staff. To that end, he wants to spend less time providing solutions and more time helping the team find their own solutions.
Rather than giving the team my answers, I want to ask questions to help them discover the solutions on their own. This should help increase engagement in executing the solution, as it helps increase ownership within the team, and it also may generate a solution that is even better than the one I came up with. So if you hear me falling into the trap of providing the solution, please flash me the signal.
You got it, boss. Hey, congratulations on your promotion.
The weekly Vexploration has helped Joel in a number of ways. The structured course helps ensure Joel is exposed to a wide range of leadership topics that interrelate. The weekly approach to a single topic helps ensure each topic gets the attention it deserves. By establishing a learning routine and taking notes during the session, Joel ensures he is ready to learn and remains engaged, thereby increasing the likelihood he will retain the information. After the session, Joel spent 5 minutes developing an action plan to help implement positive change based on what he had learned. Joel realized that he would be more successful if he enlisted others to help him, so he engaged Monica. And finally, by reflecting at the end of each week on how things had worked from the previous week and developing a second action plan before starting the next exploration, he embraced the idea that not everything you try will be successful the first time, so try again. As I'm sure you're interested to get started, the first Vexploration is available for you now through the Go Succeed Leadership Core website. However, before you jump in, open your calendar and identify the best 30-minute time slot throughout the week for you to spend developing your leadership skills. Choose a day and time when you will be energized and able to keep your commitment to learning. Choose a location that will allow you to focus, that is away from distractions, be this at home before or after work, or booking a conference room at the office. Schedule yourself a recurring meeting to block out and secure the time. For best results, you want to establish a consistent habit around your Vexploration learning. We realize that life happens, and you may need to reschedule things. The key point being reschedule, don't skip. A word of advice from the leaders before you who have taken this program. Don't shortchange yourself. While the Vexploration video or audio clip may be between 10 and 20 minutes long, the 5 minutes you spend after the clip translating what you have learned into an action plan, and the 5 minutes you spend before the clip reviewing and revising your action plan from the week before are an exponential multiplier. Vexploring isn't a passive activity. It is an active, engaged, and conscious effort to learn, explore, and enhance your leadership style. When it comes to learning a new skill, like the ones we will be exploring, there is a hierarchy of mastery. Bloom's taxonomy captures it nicely.
You start by trying to recall the information through basic memorization. This is followed by the ability to explain the concept to someone else, thus demonstrating your own understanding. Once you understand it, you can work on applying the knowledge to a new context, perhaps the situation you find yourself in. With experience comes the realization that many of the paths that lay ahead may be affected in different ways by experience in this area. Once you realize these effects, you can start to evaluate which options may be better and justify them. Finally, we reach the pinnacle, where your expertise allows you to extend the idea or bridge the idea with other ideas to develop new insight. To recap, those stages were remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. I'd like to warn you of a trap around the next corner. Like Fred, many people falsely believe that if they have heard the concept before, they know it and are putting it to the best possible use. As a result, they tune out and stop paying attention. Now that I've warned you of this trap, I know that you will not make this same mistake. Innovative ideas occur at the intersection. We will cover more on this during our innovation exploration. Until then, when you hear a concept you have heard before, listen closer and think about how what is being said could be understood differently or applied more creatively. That's it. Now you'll be jumping into the evaluate and create levels of mastery of the topic before you know it. In order to move up the hierarchy of mastery, you need to have the opportunity, and indeed take the opportunity, to explore the concepts we discuss firsthand. This can be done through many means, including managing a team at work, parenting your children, leading a sports team, participating in a loosely led volunteer group, leading a church group, getting involved in your association's council or leadership team. We realize not all concepts will apply to every group, but most will. We have also found that local volunteer organizations are often looking for people to lead groups. So if you are not already in a leadership role at work or want an additional sandbox, we recommend volunteering. It will simultaneously enrich your leadership skills and have a positive impact on other people's lives. A word on the next several sessions. The first 9 Vexplorations are designed to be a crash course in leadership. They are intended to give you a foundation, which we will reinforce and build on. These Vexplorations will focus on 6 key areas. Habit modification. If you're going to change the way you lead, you need to understand how to change habits, both yours and your team members. Time management. Great leaders realize an above-average result giving the resources at their disposal. This starts by getting a better handle on the balance between urgent and important. Your role as a leader. What are the 3 most valuable things you can do for your team as a leader? Communication. The old adage, show me a problem and I'll show you a communication problem, is all too true. While we have many Vexplorations on different aspects of communication, this primer will help ensure you are on the right track. Accountability. Without accountability, performance will be inconsistent. It is likely to decrease over time, and employees tend to become disengaged. These 5 tips will help you hold team members accountable. Culture. Your team has one. Is it the right one? What type of culture do you want your team to have? And how can you affect it? One final note. Great leaders are not afraid to be smart. Smart people learn from their mistakes. Yes, we all make mistakes. Embrace it. The only real tragedy is when people don't learn from their mistakes. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? Well, that's known as insanity. Great leaders are also not afraid to be wise. Wise people learn from other people's mistakes. So be wise. And if you cannot be wise, then be smart. Either way, go succeed. I'm Brent Peckover.